In the heart of Europe lies a mystery that has intrigued researchers for over 500 years. The Order of the Golden Fleece, the most prestigious knightly order of the Middle Ages, guarded the greatest secret, the ninth throne, a symbol of divine power that no one dared to occupy. This throne disappeared under mysterious circumstances and has not been found to this day. Who were its guardians? Where could it be hidden today? And why does the search for it unite historians, archaeologists, and even the secret services of various countries? Welcome to the world of one of the greatest mysteries in European history, the story of the ninth throne of the Order of the Golden Fleece. On January 10, 1430, an event took place in the luxurious palace of Bruges that forever changed the history of European chivalry. Philip III, Duke of Burgundy, known as Philip the Good, celebrated his wedding to Princess Isabella of Portugal. Amidst the dazzling luxury of the Burgundian court, as the noble guests admired the countless treasures displayed on a 7-meter platform, the Duke stood up and solemnly announced the establishment of a new order of knights. The Order of the Golden Fleece was to eclipse the glory of the English Order of the Garter and become a symbol of the power of the House of Burgundy. But at that moment, no one suspected that along with the order, one of the greatest mysteries of medieval Europe would be born: the mystery of the ninth throne. According to ancient chronicles kept in the Habsburg archives, Philip the Good intended to create not just a knightly order, but a mystical brotherhood based on secret knowledge and esoteric principles. 8 thrones were intended for the highest dignitaries of the order, but the ninth throne was to remain empty, as a symbol of divine power and a reminder of the transience of earthly power. The name of the order was associated with the ancient Greek legend of Jason and the Argonauts, who sought the Golden Fleece. But few knew that Duke Philip had in mind not only the mythical fleece, but also the secret knowledge it symbolized. The ninth throne became the embodiment of this mystical tradition. Initially, the order was limited to 24 knights, but a special place in its structure was occupied by a council of 8 close associates of the Duke, who sat on thrones in a specially built chapel. According to legend, the ninth throne remained empty during all ceremonies, symbolizing the presence of higher powers. The chronicles of that era describe the ninth throne as a work of art of unparalleled beauty. Made of black oak and inlaid with gold, it was decorated with images of mythical creatures and secret symbols whose meaning was known only to the initiated. The back of the throne was adorned with a coat of arms depicting a golden fleece, and the armrests were crowned with griffin heads. Legend has it that during particularly important ceremonies, a mystical figure in white robes appeared on the ninth throne, visible only to the most worthy knights. Some historians consider this to be the product of medieval superstition, but documents from that time contain numerous eyewitness accounts of this phenomenon. From the very beginning of its existence, the ninth throne was shrouded in mystery and legend. It was said that anyone who dared to sit on it without divine calling would be cursed and die within a year. This legend became so deeply rooted in the minds of contemporaries that even the Dukes of Burgundy themselves never approached the sacred throne. The creation of the Order of the Golden Fleece marked a new era in the history of European chivalry, but the birth of the legend of the ninth throne was the beginning of one of the most mysterious stories of the Middle Ages, echoes of which we still read here today. From the moment of its foundation, the Order of the Golden Fleece differed from other orders of knights, not only in its prestige, but also in its complex mystical structure, which was known only to the initiated. At the heart of the order's organization lay ancient symbolism of numbers, where the number 9 was given special significance as a symbol of completeness and divine wisdom. 8 thrones, intended for the highest dignitaries of the order, were located in a specially built chapel, according to strict esoteric principles. Each throne corresponded to one of the 8 virtues of knighthood: courage, justice, piety, wisdom, moderation, loyalty, generosity, and humility. The ninth throne symbolized the highest virtue, divine grace. The architecture of the Order's chapel was designed to reflect the cosmological ideas of the Middle Ages. The 8 thrones formed an octagon, a symbol of rebirth and the transition from the earthly to the heavenly. In the center of this octagon stood the ninth throne, representing the point of connection between the material and spiritual worlds. According to surviving documents, each of the 8 thrones was made in a specific style that reflected the character of the corresponding virtue. The throne of courage was decorated with images of lions and eagles, the throne of justice with scales and swords, and the throne of piety with religious symbols. The ninth throne surpassed all the others in its splendor and mystical symbolism. Historians note that the structure of the order with 9 thrones had parallels with ancient mystical traditions. Some researchers see in this the influence of the Knights Templar, whose secret knowledge may have been preserved in the circles of the highest nobility. Others point to a connection with the Kabbalistic tradition, where the number 9 has a special meaning. The rituals of the order were performed on strictly defined days of the year, associated with astrological events and Christian holidays. During these ceremonies, the knights took their places on thrones according to their rank and merits. The ninth throne always remained empty, but a special candle was lit in front of it, symbolizing the presence of divine power. The mystical significance of the thrones was revealed not only in their symbolism, but also in the very procedure of their creation. Each throne was made over 9 months by specially selected craftsmen who took a vow of silence about the secrets of the order. The wood for the thrones was harvested in sacred groves, and the metal elements were forged on specific holidays. Particular attention was paid to the materials used to make the thrones. The base was made of oak, a tree symbolizing strength and longevity. The gold inlays were made from metal mined in mines consecrated by church hierarchs. Precious stones were selected according to the astrological correspondences of each virtue. The ninth throne surpassed the others, not only in size, but also in the complexity of its symbolic program. A genealogical tree was carved on its back, connecting earthly dynasties with the heavenly hierarchy. The armrests were decorated with figures of cherubim, and relics of saints were embedded in the base of the throne, giving it a special sacredness. The structure of the order with 9 thrones existed for more than 2 centuries, becoming a model for other European orders. But it was the 9th throne that remained the most mysterious element of this system, whose secret still intrigues researchers today. The 9th throne of the Order of the Golden Fleece was not just a piece of furniture, but the embodiment of the highest authority, which, according to medieval beliefs, came directly from God. Unlike the 8 other thrones, which were intended for earthly dignitaries, the 9th throne symbolized the divine presence in the affairs of the order and served as a reminder that true power belongs only to the Almighty. According to secret documents of the order discovered in the Habsburg archives in the 19th century, the 9th throne was to remain empty until a ruler worthy of divine investiture appeared. This concept reflected medieval ideas about the sacredness of royal power and the divine right of monarchs to rule. Historical sources describe the 9th throne as a masterpiece of medieval art, surpassing all other thrones of the order in beauty and symbolism. The throne was 7 feet high, corresponding to the number of perfection in the Christian tradition. The back of the throne was decorated with intricate carvings depicting the heavenly hierarchy from seraphim to earthly rulers. Particular attention was drawn to the central element of the throne's backrest, an image of the golden fleece suspended from the branches of the world tree. This image combined the pagan symbolism of ancient Greek myths with Christian ideas of salvation. The fleece symbolized not only power, but also the sacrifice necessary to obtain it. The armrests of the 9th throne were crowned with the heads of griffins, mythical creatures that combined the royalty of a lion and the divinity of an eagle. Between the griffin's claws were mountain crystal spheres, symbolizing the purity of thought and transparency of intention of those who could claim supreme power. The base of the throne rested on 4 steps, each decorated with precious stones of a specific color.
The first step, encrusted with emeralds, symbolized hope. The second with sapphires, faith. The third with rubies, love. And the fourth with diamonds, purity. This symbolism reflected the path of spiritual ascent to divine power. At the foot of the throne was a hidden reliquary chamber, which, according to legend, contained a fragment of Christ's crown of thorns. This relic was intended to remind those who sat on the throne that true power requires a willingness to suffer and sacrifice oneself. Only the Grand Masters of the Order and specially appointed guardians had access to the chamber. The mystical function of the ninth throne was manifested during special ceremonies of the Order, when the knights gathered to decide on the most important issues. According to surviving descriptions, the throne was surrounded by a special glow, and some witnesses swore that they saw a ghostly figure in white robes blessing those gathered. The right to occupy the ninth throne was not hereditary and could not be granted by an earthly ruler. According to the Order's charter, only those who received a divine sign and were unanimously recognized by all the knights of the Order could claim this honor. In the entire history of the Order, no such claimant ever appeared. The symbolic significance of the ninth throne went far beyond the Order itself, becoming a model for understanding the nature of power in medieval Europe. It embodied the ideal of a ruler who rules not by force but by divine grace, and whose power is based on moral perfection and spiritual superiority. The first documentary references to the ninth throne appear in the chronicles of the court historian of Duke Philip the Good, Georges Châtelain, who kept detailed records of the ceremonies and rituals of the Order. His Chronicle of Glorious Deeds, from 1437, contains a mysterious entry about a throne that awaits its hour, and the one who is worthy to occupy it. Châtelain describes the first solemn ceremony of the Order, which took place on St. Andrew's Day in 1431. According to his records, all 8 thrones were occupied by the highest dignitaries of the Order, but the ninth throne remained empty, as if waiting for a guest from another world. The chronicler notes that Duke Philip particularly emphasized the symbolic significance of the empty throne. Of particular interest are the records of the Burgundian chancellor Nicolas Roland, who mentions in his memoirs a secret meeting held in 1435. At this meeting, the mystical aspects of the Order were discussed, and Roland recorded the Duke's words that the ninth throne holds a secret that will only be revealed at the appointed hour. Italian diplomat Antonio Marcello, who visited the court of the Duke of Burgundy in 1442, left a vivid description of the Order's ceremony in his reports to the Venetian Doge. He wrote, "Among the 8 magnificent thrones stands a ninth, surpassing the others in beauty and grandeur, but remaining empty, which gives the whole ceremony a special solemnity and mystical atmosphere." The Franciscan monk Jean de Metz, served as chaplain at the Duke's court, mentions in his spiritual notes the prayers that were offered before the ninth throne. He describes how, during special services, 9 candles were lit before the throne, symbolizing the 9 orders of angels, and how the Duke knelt before the empty throne as a sign of humility before the highest authority. The German knight Ulrich von Liechtenstein, who was admitted to the Order in 1445, recounts in his memoirs the initiation ceremony, during which each new knight had to swear allegiance before the ninth throne. He describes the unusual feeling of an invisible force that all initiates experienced as they approached the sacred throne. The archives of the Duchy of Burgundy contain interesting correspondence between Philip the Good and his confessor, the Bishop of Chalon. In one of the letters dated 1447, the bishop advises the Duke on the sacred throne, warning him against attempts to use it for political purposes, and reminding him of the divine purpose of this symbol. A special place among the early sources is occupied by the Treatise on Knightly Virtues, written by the court alchemist and philosopher Bernard de Trévise. This work, written in 1450, contains an entire chapter devoted to the symbolism of the ninth throne, which the author interprets as a mirror of perfect power, reflecting the divine will on earth.
The English ambassador Sir John Fastolf, who was at the Burgundian court in 1448, mentions in his reports to King Henry VI the strange custom of the Burgundians to keep one throne permanently empty. He notes that this custom made a strong impression on all foreign guests and became the subject of numerous interpretations and speculations. Portuguese chronicler Fernão Lopes, describing the wedding of Princess Isabella to Duke Philip, particularly notes the moment when the bride was presented to the ninth throne. According to his records, the princess knelt before the empty throne, symbolizing her entry not only into marriage with the duke, but also into the mystical brotherhood of the order. The reign of Emperor Charles V was the heyday of the Order of the Golden Fleece, and a period when the mystery of the ninth throne took on special political and mystical significance. When Charles inherited the Grand Mastership of the Order in 1516, he controlled virtually all of Europe, making the Order the most influential knightly organization of the time. Charles V took a special interest in the mystical traditions of the Order and personally studied ancient documents relating to the ninth throne. His personal notes, in which he reflects on the symbolic meaning of the empty throne and the possibility of using it to strengthen the legitimacy of his power, have been preserved in the imperial archives. However, the emperor never decided to break with ancient tradition. Under Charles V, the Order's chapel in Brussels underwent extensive reconstruction. The emperor invited the best craftsmen in Europe to renovate all the thrones, but special attention was paid to the ninth throne. According to surviving accounts, the restoration cost as much gold as it cost to maintain an entire regiment for a year. The Venetian artist Titian, who worked at the emperor's court, left several sketches depicting the ninth throne. These drawings are the only accurate images of the legendary throne that have survived to this day. The sketches show that under Charles V, the throne was supplemented with new elements, imperial symbols, which, however, did not violate its mystical character. The ninth throne acquired special significance during the famous capitulation of the Order in 1547 in Augsburg. This meeting was attended by the kings of France, Portugal, Hungary, and other European states. They were all amazed by the sight of the empty throne, which in their words seemed to radiate a special energy and remind them of the transience of earthly power. Imperial Secretary Martin de Salinas describes in his memoirs an incident that occurred during one of the Order's ceremonies. When Emperor Charles V approached the ninth throne to place new relics before it, all those present noticed a strange glow emanating from the throne. This episode was recorded by several independent witnesses and became part of the legend about the divine nature of the throne. Under Charles V, a special position of Keeper of the Ninth Throne was created, the highest dignitary of the Order, responsible for the preservation and ritual maintenance of the sacred throne. The first keeper was Count Engelbert II of Nassau, a man of great learning and piety, who compiled a detailed description of all the rituals associated with the throne. The emperor also ordered an exact replica of the ninth throne to be made for the Order's chapel in Madrid. However, this replica was never considered equal to the original and served only as a reminder of the existence of the true throne in Brussels. Interestingly, the craftsmen who created the copy worked blindfolded, so that they could not completely reproduce the sacred symbols of the original. The reign of Charles V was marked by the creation of an extensive library of manuscripts devoted to the history and mysticism of the Order. These documents contained prophecies that the ninth throne would find its true owner at the moment of the greatest crisis in the Christian world. Some court astrologers predicted that Charles V himself could be the chosen one. However, despite all the temptations, the emperor never decided to take the ninth throne. In his later letters, he wrote that he felt unworthy of such an honor, and that the true owner of the throne should surpass him not only in earthly power, but also in spiritual perfection. The emperor's position further strengthened the mystical aura surrounding the ninth throne. The rituals of the Order of the Golden Fleece associated with the ninth throne were a complex system of ceremonies that were conducted in the strictest secrecy and were known only to a small circle of initiates. These rites combined elements of Christian mysticism, ancient pagan traditions, and alchemical practices, creating a unique spiritual atmosphere of medieval esotericism. The main ceremony associated with the ninth throne was the ritual of waiting, which was held on the eve of St. Andrew's Day, the patron saint of the order. At midnight, the knights gathered in a chapel lit only by 9 candles placed around an empty throne. The participants in the ceremony dressed in white robes and stood in a circle around the throne, reciting special prayers in Latin. According to secret documents of the order found in the Habsburg archives, during the waiting ritual, spells were recited calling for divine blessing on the order and its members. The central part of the ceremony was the collective contemplation of the empty throne, during which the knights entered a state of deep meditation, trying to comprehend the mystical meaning of the sacred seat. Another important ritual was the Mirror of Perfection ceremony, held once a year on the day of the order's founding. During this ritual, 8 mirrors were placed in front of the ninth throne, each symbolizing one of the knightly virtues. The participants in the ceremony took turns approaching the mirrors, looking at their reflections and reflecting on their own spiritual perfection. The ritual of the coronation of the chosen one was particularly solemn, a hypothetical ceremony that was to take place if a worthy candidate for the ninth throne appeared. Although this ritual was never performed in reality, its scenario was carefully planned and recorded in the secret books of the order. The ceremony involved a 7-day purification of the claimant and special tests of his spiritual maturity. Alchemical elements of the rituals were manifested in the use of special incense burned before the ninth throne. The recipes for these compounds were kept in the strictest secrecy and passed from one guardian of the throne to another. The incense included rare herbs brought from distant lands, resins from sacred trees, and powders made from precious stones. During particularly important ceremonies, a ritual called Voices of the Ancestors was performed, when knights took turns telling stories about the great deeds of former members of the order. This story always ended at the ninth throne, where the formula was pronounced, "The place awaits the worthy, time will reveal the chosen one." It was believed that the voices of deceased knights were present during this ceremony. A special place in the rituals was occupied by the Trial of Loyalty ceremony, which was held when new members were accepted into the order. The candidate had to spend the night alone in the chapel, sitting facing the ninth throne and thinking about his readiness to sacrifice everything for the highest ideals. Many accounts say that during this trial, the candidates saw mystical visions. The rituals were accompanied by special music, performed by a choir of 9 singers. These musical works were complex polyphonic compositions based on ancient church modes and incorporating elements of folk melodies from various European regions. The notes of these works were never written down but were passed down orally from generation to generation. All ceremonies ended with the Seal of Silence ritual, when each participant took a solemn oath never to reveal what they had seen and heard. Breaking this oath was punishable by immediate expulsion from the order, and a curse that, according to the beliefs of the time, lasted for 7 generations of the traitor's descendants. This tradition explains why so little reliable information about the rituals has survived to this day. The death of the last Spanish Habsburg, Charles II, in 1706, was a turning point not only in European politics, but also in the fate of the Order of the Golden Fleece and its greatest secret, the ninth throne. The War of the Spanish Succession, which broke out between the French Bourbons and the Austrian Habsburgs, led to the split of the order and marked the beginning of one of the most mysterious chapters in the history of medieval relics. According to the will of Charles II, the Spanish crown, and with it the grand mastership of the order, were to pass to the French prince Philip of Anjou, who became King Philip V of Spain. However, the Austrian Habsburgs, led by Emperor Charles VI, did not recognize this inheritance and claimed their rights to the order as the ancestral property of their house. In 1712, during the war, an event occurred that forever changed the fate of the Ninth Throne. When the troops of Emperor Charles VI temporarily occupied Madrid, the Austrians took not only the state archives out of the city, but also the sacred relics of the order. Among them was the legendary Ninth Throne, which was secretly transported to Vienna. However, this fact remained a secret for a long time, even to most members of the order. French historian Saint-Simon mentions in his memoirs a mysterious cargo that was taken out of the Spanish capital under cover of night. The cargo was accompanied by a special detachment consisting exclusively of Knights of the Order, which indicates the exceptional importance of the items being transported. The split of the order into two branches, Spanish and Austrian, led to a fierce dispute over who had the right to possess the Ninth Throne. The Spanish side claimed that the throne was an integral part of the Spanish heritage of the order, while the Austrians argued that they were the legitimate heirs of the founders of the order, the Dukes of Burgundy. Negotiations in Cambrai in 1724, aimed at settling the dispute between the two branches of the order, paid particular attention to the question of the Ninth Throne. The secret protocols of these negotiations, discovered only in the 20th century, contain references to a sacred object that cannot be divided. However, no compromise was ever reached. Austrian diplomat Prince Eugene of Savoy mentions in his encrypted correspondence with the emperor that the Ninth Throne was hidden in a place known only to God and the emperor. This phrase has been the subject of numerous interpretations, historians attempting to establish the exact location of the throne at that time. The Spanish side made several attempts to return the Ninth Throne. In 1730, a special mission led by the Duke of Alba arrived in Vienna to negotiate the return of the order's relics. However, the Austrians categorically refused to even discuss the matter, stating that the location of the throne was known only to the emperor and a few select individuals. The French ambassador, the Marquis de Villars, described the atmosphere of secrecy surrounding the Ninth Throne at the Viennese court in his reports to Louis XV. He noted that even mentioning the throne caused confusion among the Austrian courtiers, which indicates the particular sensitivity of this topic. The split in the order had far-reaching consequences for the fate of the Ninth Throne. The Spanish branch was forced to create a symbolic replacement, an empty space in the chapel of the Madrid palace that served as a reminder of the lost relic. The Austrian branch, on the contrary, surrounded the original throne with even greater secrecy, restricting access to it to only the most senior members of the dynasty. The War of the Spanish Succession not only divided the order, but also marked the beginning of a centuries-old mystery about the whereabouts of the Ninth Throne, which continues to intrigue researchers to this day. The exact moment of the Ninth Throne's disappearance remains one of the greatest mysteries in European history. The last reliable mention of the throne in official documents dates back to 1787, when Emperor Joseph II ordered an inventory of all the treasures of the Austrian crown. The inventory lists a throne for special purposes, but a few years later this item was mysteriously deleted. The first evidence of the possible disappearance of the throne appears in the memoirs of Count Colrido, a court chamberlain who served at the court of Emperor Leopold II. In his notes from 1790, he mentions a great loss that shook the emperor and prompted him to conduct a secret investigation among his closest associates. The French émigré Marquis de Breteuil, who found refuge at the Viennese court, mentions in his letters to his sister a strange incident that occurred in 1788. According to him, Emperor Joseph II suddenly ordered all valuables to be transferred from one secret vault to another, but looked extremely alarmed, as if something was missing. Of particular interest are the statements of the Viennese jeweler Johann Kuckert, who in 1789 was summoned to the palace to appraise a certain item. In his diary he wrote, "Today I saw a throne of unparalleled beauty, but the emperor did not ask about its price, but whether it was possible to make an exact copy. Strange. Why copy something that already exists?" Italian archaeologist Enrico Visconti who worked with the Austrian imperial collections, mentions in his scientific notes from 1801 gaps in the inventories that indicate the disappearance of several important items at the end of the 18th century. Among them, he singles out a ceremonial seat of unknown purpose. There is a theory that the throne was sold to replenish the military treasury during the Napoleonic Wars. This hypothesis is supported by the fact that in 1796, Emperor Franz I was forced to pledge a significant part of the imperial treasures to banking houses in London and Amsterdam to finance the war against France. An alternative version suggests that the throne was secretly taken out of Vienna during the French occupation in 1809. French Marshal Murat mentions in his memoirs that the Austrians evacuated the most valuable items even before French troops entered the city. Perhaps the ninth throne was among these treasures. Russian diplomat Prince Razumovsky, who was in Vienna as ambassador in 1810, reported to Emperor Alexander I about rumors circulating at the Viennese court. According to these rumors, several important Habsburg relics were transferred to Hungary or even Russia for safekeeping. Intriguing information is contained in the diary of the English antiquarian Lord Elgin, who visited Vienna in 1815. He recorded a conversation with an Austrian aristocrat who hinted that the greatest treasure of the House of Habsburg rests in a place where the enemies of the empire will never find it. Of particular interest are the memoirs of Countess Maria Theresa Traun, lady-in-waiting to the Empress. In her memoirs, published only in the 20th century, she tells of a secret room in the Hofburg that was walled up by order of Emperor Franz I. According to her, this room contained items that were not to fall into the hands of profane people. The version about the theft of the throne also has some basis. The Vienna police archives contain documents about the investigation into the robbery of the imperial treasury in 1802. Although it was officially stated that nothing was missing, some details of the case indicate that the criminals may have had access to secret information about the location of particularly valuable items. After the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, independent researchers gained access to the Habsburg family archives, opening a new chapter in the search for the ninth throne. The first systematic research was begun by the Viennese historian Dr. Otto Stuber, who in 1922 obtained permission to study documents relating to the treasures of the imperial house. Stuber discovered mysterious correspondence between Emperor Franz Joseph and his entourage, dated 1867. In one of the letters, the emperor expresses concern about the state of the ancestral heritage and orders a secret inspection of all family relics. Particular attention is paid to items related to the traditions of the order. In the personal diary of Archduke Franz Karl, uncle of Emperor Franz Joseph, researchers found an entry from 1849 in which he mentions a conversation with his mother, Archduchess Sophie. She allegedly told him about the sacred chair of the ancestors, which is kept in a place known only to the head of the house and his heir. French historian Maurice Paléologue, who worked in the Vienna archives in the 1930s, discovered an interesting document, a letter from Emperor Franz I to his son, the future Emperor Ferdinand I. In this letter, dated 1835, the emperor gives instructions regarding family secrets that should only be passed down from father to son. The discovery by American historian Professor James MacDonald attracted particular attention. In 1957, he found coded correspondence between various members of the Habsburg family in the archives. The code was only deciphered in the 1970s and contained references to a sacred object of the order that had been moved to a safe place. In 1962, Italian researcher Carlo Bertelli found a plan of Schönbrunn Palace in the Habsburg archives with notes made by Emperor Franz Joseph himself. The plan marked several secret rooms, one of which was labeled Sanctum, a sanctuary. However, during an inspection of the palace, these rooms were found to be either walled up or used for other purposes. Russian historian Nikolai Petrovich Ignatiev, who studied documents on Russian-Austrian relations in the 1980s, discovered an interesting correspondence between Emperor Alexander II and Franz Joseph. In one of the letters dated 1876, the Austrian emperor thanks the Russian Tsar for the safekeeping of family valuables during the Prussian-Austrian War. A sensational discovery was made by German archivist Hans Müller in 1982. In the personal papers of the last emperor, Charles I, he found a will in which the emperor entrusted the sacred heritage of the order to the care of faithful guardians until its return. The letter hints that the location of the treasure is known to those who bear the sign of the rune. In the 1990s, Polish researcher Stanislaw Kowalski discovered documents in the archives that testify to secret contacts between representatives of various branches of the Habsburg family even after the fall of the monarchy. The minutes of family meetings in the 1920s repeatedly mention the need to preserve traditions and protect the heritage. Modern research using computer technology has revealed hidden texts in some Habsburg documents. In 2005, English cryptographer Dr. Elizabeth Harris deciphered a secret message in one of Archduke Otto von Habsburg's letters, written in 1948. The message contains a reference to a northern refuge for the heritage of the ancestors. The latest archival finds date back to the 2000s, when a number of documents from the special services of various countries were declassified. British intelligence archives revealed that during World War II, the Nazis were actively searching for the Habsburg treasures, including items associated with the Order of the Golden Fleece. This indicates that the mystery of the Ninth Throne was known and of interest even in the 20th century. All threads of the search for the Ninth Throne invariably lead researchers to Vienna, a city that for centuries was the center of Habsburg power and the repository of their greatest secrets. It is here, in a labyrinth of palaces, underground passages, and secret rooms, that the answer to the mystery of the legendary throne's disappearance may lie. The Hofburg, the main residence of the Austrian emperors, is a veritable city within a city, with multiple buildings constructed in different eras. Architectural research in recent decades has revealed that the palace complex contains far more hidden rooms than previously thought. Many of these rooms remain inaccessible or walled up. In 1978, during restoration work in one of the wings of the Hofburg, workers discovered a hidden staircase leading to underground rooms. Architect Franz Weber, who was in charge of the restoration, reported the discovery to the authorities, but access to the rooms was immediately closed by order of the competent authorities. Geophysical surveys conducted in the 1990s revealed an extensive network of underground rooms beneath the Hofburg, many of which are not marked on any known plans of the palace. These voids in the ground could be either natural caves or artificially created hiding places intended for storing particularly valuable items. Austrian architectural historian Dr. Gerhard Eger points out in his research that the layout of some rooms in the Hofburg does not correspond to their official purpose. In particular, he drew attention to a room that is officially considered a library, but has unusually thick walls and a ventilation system more suitable for a vault. Interesting information was provided by Viennese local historian Joseph Kirchner, who spent his entire life studying the history of the city. According to him, there have long been legends among Viennese tour guides about a room that cannot be shown to tourists. This room is said to be located in one of the towers of the Hofburg and was walled up in the 19th century. In 1985, restorers of St. Stephen's Cathedral discovered an ancient tunnel leading from the cathedral towards the Hofburg. It was officially stated that the tunnel was used for evacuation during the Turkish sieges, but some researchers believe that it could have been used to secretly transport valuables between the imperial palace and church treasuries. French journalist Pierre Dubois, in his book Secrets of Vienna, describes a meeting with an elderly Austrian who claimed that his grandfather worked at the court of Emperor Franz Joseph. According to him, There was a special room in the basement of the palace, accessible only to the emperor and a few trusted individuals. This room contained items that were not to see the light of day until a special hour. Modern technology has allowed for a more detailed study of the Viennese palaces. In 2010, a group of Austrian archaeologists used ground-penetrating radar to scan the foundations of the Hofburg. The results showed the presence of several large cavities that did not correspond to any of the known basement rooms. The Belvedere Palace, built by Prince Eugene of Savoy, the same commander who mentioned in his letters a sacred object known only to God and the emperor, has attracted particular attention from researchers. Architectural analysis shows that the palace has rooms whose purpose remains a mystery to this day. Viennese antique dealer Carl Schmidt, who specializes in Habsburg-era items, claims that rumors of the existence of a Viennese treasure are circulating among private collectors in the city. According to him, he has been approached several times by people offering to sell items related to the old dynasty, but they always refuse to reveal the source of these items. The Napoleonic Wars were a turning point in the history of European monarchies and their treasures. For the House of Habsburg, these decades of war meant not only political upheaval, but also the need to hide and move the greatest dynastic relics, among which could have been the legendary ninth throne of the Order of the Golden Fleece. The first serious upheavals for the Austrian treasures began in 1796, when General Bonaparte's troops won brilliant victories in Italy. Fearing a French advance on Austrian possessions, Emperor Franz I ordered the evacuation of the most valuable items from the Viennese palaces to safer places. Count Colloredo, the emperor's chief chamberlain, describes in his memoirs the feverish activity involved in packing and transporting the imperial treasures. He mentions items of special importance that required special handling and escort. These included not only jewels, but also relics associated with dynastic honor and ancestral traditions. Of particular interest are the records of the court treasurer, Baron Steinberg, who oversaw the evacuation of the treasures. His diary contains a mysterious entry from March 1797. The sacred cargo has been sent to a northern refuge under the protection of loyal men. May God protect our heritage from desecration. The northern refuge could refer to the Habsburg possessions in Bohemia or even in Poland. During the Second Coalition War, when French troops once again threatened Austrian lands, an even larger evacuation was organized. Russian ambassador Prince Razumovsky reported to Emperor Paul I that the Austrians had requested temporary storage of some valuables in Russian possessions. The catastrophic defeats of the Austrian troops at Austerlitz in 1805 and at Wagram in 1809 led to the French occupation of Vienna. Marshal Berthier, the temporary governor of the city, reported to Napoleon that the Austrians had managed to remove the most valuable items before the French troops entered the capital. French Commissioner Denon, who was responsible for the confiscation of works of art in the occupied territories, compiled a detailed report on the treasures found in the Viennese palaces. However, his list omits many items that, according to earlier inventories, should have been in the imperial collections. This confirms that the most valuable relics were indeed evacuated. Interesting information can be found in the memoirs of General Clark, who participated in the search of the imperial palaces. He mentions the discovery of secret rooms that were found to be empty, although their furnishings indicated that valuable items had recently been stored there. Traces of heavy furniture were found on the floor of one of these rooms. After Napoleon's defeat and the restoration of Austrian rule, the process of returning the evacuated treasures began. However, not all items returned to Vienna. In his report of 1815, court antiquarian Count Fickelmont mentions irretrievably lost relics, the whereabouts of which remained unknown even to those who organized their evacuation. Of particular concern was the fact that several people who knew the location of the hidden treasures died during the wars or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Count Metternich bitterly notes in his memoirs that the secrets of our ancestors went to the grave with their keepers. There is a theory that part of the Habsburg treasures was smuggled to England through a network of secret channels organized by British intelligence. London banker Nathan Rothschild mentions in his private letters special deposits of the continental nobility placed in his bank during the Napoleonic Wars. The search for treasures lost during the wars continued throughout the 19th century. Emperor Franz Joseph repeatedly sent special missions to various parts of the former empire to search for dynastic relics. However, the ninth throne was never found, which suggests that it was either hidden very carefully or fell into private hands. The 21st century has brought new opportunities for the search for the ninth throne, thanks to the development of modern technology and research methods. An international group of historians, archaeologists, and technical specialists continues to work on uncovering this centuries-old mystery using the most advanced scientific achievements. In 2015, Dr. Martha Wilson of Oxford University initiated the Lost Treasures of the Habsburgs project, which brought together researchers from 12 countries. The project uses digital technology to analyze historical documents, create three-dimensional models of potential hiding places, and compare scattered evidence from various archives. German physicist Professor Klaus Müller used radiocarbon dating methods to analyze wood fragments found in various European castles and palaces. His research showed that several samples dating from the late 14th century have an unusual isotopic composition characteristic of oak trees that grew in Burgundy, the home of the Order of the Golden Fleece. French researcher Isabelle Dupont, a specialist in medieval crafts, created a computer model of the ninth throne based on surviving descriptions and images. Her work showed that the throne must have weighed at least 300 kilograms and required special conditions for transportation, which significantly limits the possible places where it could have been hidden. The use of ground-penetrating radar and other geophysical methods has made it possible to survey underground rooms in more than 50 European castles and palaces. Austrian archaeologist Dr. Johannes Wagner discovered anomalies in the foundations of Ambras Castle near Innsbruck, where the collection of Archduke Ferdinand II, a renowned collector of rarities, was once kept. Italian art historian Carlo Rossini conducted a detailed analysis of all known images of thrones in European painting from the 15th to the 18th centuries. He discovered images of thrones with the symbols of the Order of the Golden Fleece in several paintings, which may indicate that the artists saw the ninth throne or copies of it. Russian cryptanalyst Dmitry Volkov used modern computer algorithms to decipher encrypted messages in Habsburg documents. His work established that many 18th century letters contain hidden references to a sacred legacy that must be returned at the appointed hour. American genealogist Jennifer Smith traced the fates of all known keepers of the order's relics and their descendants. Her research showed that several families in various European countries still keep items associated with the Order of the Golden Fleece, although they do not publicize this. Swiss banker Hans Zimmer, who studies the history of private deposits, found records in his bank's archives of a special deposit made by a representative of the Austrian nobility in 1812. The deposit has not yet been claimed, and its contents remain a mystery. Polish restorer Andrzej Kowalczyk, who works with wooden art objects, claims to have encountered fragments of furniture that, in terms of style and materials, could date back to the era when the ninth throne was created. However, the owners of these items refuse to make them available for examination. Contemporary hypotheses about the location of the ninth throne can be divided into several main versions. The first suggests that the throne is still in one of the Habsburgs' hiding places, possibly in Vienna or its vicinity. The second version assumes that the throne was taken to another country and is kept in a private collection. The third hypothesis suggests that the throne was dismantled into pieces that may be stored in different places. The most intriguing modern theory belongs to British historian Dr. Robert Harrison, who suggests that the ninth throne never disappeared but continues to be used by a secret society associated with the Order of the Golden Fleece. In his opinion, the order did not cease to exist, but went underground, preserving ancient traditions and rituals. Over the centuries, various people have claimed to have seen the ninth throne, or to know its location. These testimonies, often contradictory and difficult to verify, nevertheless represent an important part of the mystery and may contain a grain of truth amid the legends and fantasies. One of the most intriguing accounts belongs to the Hungarian aristocrat Count Esterházy, who in 1897 described in his memoirs a visit to a secret meeting in one of the castles of Transylvania. According to him, in the center of the hall stood a throne of incredible beauty, decorated with golden fleece, on which no one sat, but all the participants of the meeting treated it with special reverence. In 1923, French journalist Henri Delaroche published an article about a meeting with an elderly antique dealer in Brussels, who showed him a photograph of the throne, allegedly taken in one of the private castles. The antique dealer claimed that the throne had been owned by descendants of the Burgundian nobility, who had secretly kept it for centuries. Of particular interest are the statements of Russian émigré Prince Volkonsky, who in 1935 told historian Paul Milo in Paris that he had seen a throne in a country estate near Moscow as a child that was strikingly similar to the description of the ninth throne. The prince claimed that the throne had been brought from Austria by his grandfather during the Napoleonic Wars. In the 1950s, German researcher Otto Hahn recorded the testimony of a former servant of the Bavarian king, who claimed that a collection of medieval artifacts was kept in the secret cellars of Neuschwanstein Castle, including a throne with an image of the Golden Fleece. However, attempts to verify this information were unsuccessful. Swiss banker Robert Zimmer described in his memoirs of 1968 a strange client who at the beginning of the century entrusted his bank with an object of exceptional historical value. The client introduced himself as a descendant of the Austrian nobility and stated that the item should be kept until justice is restored in Europe. In the 1970s, American collector John Morgan Jr. claimed that his grandfather had acquired several items from the Habsburg collection in Europe after World War I, including a ceremonial throne with mystical symbols. However, after Morgan's death, these items disappeared, and their fate remains unknown. In her memoirs, published in the 1980s, Italian Countess Maria di Savoia recounted a family legend according to which her ancestor had received a sacred relic of the order from Emperor Franz I for safekeeping. The Countess hinted that this relic was still in the family castle, but refused to reveal any details. Documentary sources also contain mysterious references to possible traces of the ninth throne. The Vatican archives contain a letter from Cardinal Consalvi to Pope Pius VII, dated 1811, which mentions a proposal by the Austrian court to place an object of exceptional sacred value in the papal possessions. British diplomat Lord Castlereagh, in his dispatches from Vienna during the Congress of Vienna, mentions rumors circulating among the Austrian nobility about the lost heritage of the House of Burgundy. He notes that this topic caused particular excitement among representatives of ancient families. Contemporary evidence is no less intriguing. In 1995, Austrian restorer Franz Kogel reported that he had been approached by an anonymous client with a request to assess the condition of a historic throne. The client provided only photographs, but Kogler claims that the throne depicted in them fully corresponds to the descriptions of the ninth throne. In 2003, a message appeared on the internet from a person claiming to be a descendant of the guardians of the order's traditions. He claimed that the ninth throne had not only been preserved, but was still used in secret ceremonies by the modern heirs of the order. However, all attempts to establish the identity of this person have been unsuccessful. The most recent evidence dates back to 2015, when an elderly Austrian woman named Elisabeth von Habsburg-Lothringen told reporters that she had information about the location of the family relics. However, she refused to provide any evidence, stating that the time has not yet come to reveal the secrets of our ancestors. Modern researchers have put forward several plausible hypotheses about where the ninth throne might be located today. Each of these versions is based on historical facts, but none has yet been definitively confirmed. Many experts consider the most likely version to be that the throne is still hidden in one of the Habsburg family's secret hiding places in Austria. Geophysical studies have revealed the existence of numerous unexplored underground rooms beneath the historic palaces of Vienna and its surroundings. Doctor of Architecture Gerhard Steiner believes that the throne may be located in a specially equipped bunker under one of Vienna's palaces. Austrian historian Karl Weber has put forward the hypothesis that the ninth throne was moved to Melk Abbey on the Danube, where the abbots traditionally maintained close ties with the House of Habsburg. The monastery archives contain records of special deposits made by the imperial family during the Napoleonic Wars. Many of these deposits were never claimed. The Swiss version suggests that the throne is in one of the private bank vaults in Zurich or Geneva. Banker Klaus Müller claims that his bank still holds several historical deposits of Austrian origin, the contents of which remain undisclosed at the request of the original depositors. The British Trail is also of interest to researchers. During the Napoleonic Wars, many European aristocrats transferred their treasures to England. London antique dealer James Christie mentioned in his memoirs Continental Treasures, sold through his auction house to anonymous owners. It is possible that the ninth throne ended up in one of these private English collections. The American hypothesis is based on the fact that many European relics were taken to the United States in the 20th century. Researcher Thomas Howard of the Smithsonian Institute discovered documents indicating that several major American collectors acquired items from the Habsburg collections through Swiss intermediaries. The Russian version is linked to the fact that during the Napoleonic Wars, some of the Austrian treasures were temporarily placed in Russian possessions. After the 1917 revolution, many of these items may have remained in Russia or ended up in private hands. Some researchers believe that the throne may be located in one of the estates near Moscow, or even in the collections of Russian museums under inaccurate attribution. An intriguing hypothesis was put forward by German historian Hans Schmidt, who suggests that the ninth throne was dismantled into parts that are kept in different places. This approach would make sense from a security standpoint. Even if one part is found, the rest would remain hidden. Individual elements of the throne could have been disguised as ordinary antiques. The Vatican version is based on the close ties between the Habsburgs and the Catholic Church. Perhaps the throne was transferred to the papal possessions as a church relic. The Vatican archives contain references to sacred objects transferred for safekeeping by various European dynasties. Modern technology allows for even more exotic hypotheses. Cryptanalyst David Harris believes that the encrypted messages of the Habsburgs may contain the exact coordinates of the throne's location. His team is working on deciphering the documents using quantum computers. French researcher Pierre Dubois has put forward a theory that the throne never left the territory of the former Burgundy and may be located in one of the castles of Franche-Comté. This area was of particular importance to the founders of the order, and it would be logical to return the sacred relic to its historical homeland. The most romantic hypothesis suggests that the ninth throne continues to be used by a secret society created by the descendants of the Knights of the Golden Fleece. According to this version, the order never ceased to exist, but merely went underground, preserving its ancient traditions and rituals in the strictest secrecy. Whichever version turns out to be true, the search for the ninth throne continues. Modern technology and international cooperation between researchers give hope that this centuries-old mystery may be solved in the coming decades. The mystery of the ninth throne of the Order of the Golden Fleece goes far beyond the simple search for a lost artifact. This enigma reflects the profound processes of European history, symbolizes the continuity of traditions, and is a unique example of how material objects can carry spiritual and political significance that transcends their physical value. The history of the search for the ninth throne demonstrates the evolution of the European aristocracy from medieval chivalric ideals to modern realities. The Order of the Golden Fleece was created at a time when personal honor and spiritual values were considered the highest manifestations of nobility. The ninth throne embodied these ideals, serving as a reminder that true power must be based on moral perfection. The fate of the throne is inextricably linked to the greatest political upheavals in European history. Each period, from the Burgundian Wars to the Napoleonic invasion, from the fall of monarchies to world wars, left its mark on the history of this relic. The throne became a kind of barometer of political change, its movements and concealment reflecting the crises of European dynasties. The mystical significance of the ninth throne points to the important role of esoteric traditions in medieval politics. European rulers not only sought secular power, but also sought spiritual legitimacy for their rule. The empty throne symbolized the idea that earthly power is only a reflection of the divine order, and that true rule requires not only strength, but also wisdom. The modern search for the throne reflects a changed attitude toward historical heritage. Whereas in the past, dynastic relics were symbols of the power of specific families, today they are regarded as part of the common cultural heritage of humanity. International cooperation among researchers shows how historical science can unite people of different nationalities in their quest to uncover the mysteries of the past. The technological aspect of the search demonstrates how modern scientific methods can be applied to solve historical mysteries. The use of ground-penetrating radar, computer modeling, cryptanalysis, and other innovative approaches shows that history is not only a humanistic discipline, but also a technical one that requires an interdisciplinary approach. The economic significance of the mystery is evident in its impact on tourism, the antiques market, and cultural industries. The story of the ninth throne draws attention to castles, museums, and archives associated with the Order of the Golden Fleece, promoting cultural tourism and the preservation of historical monuments. The social dimension of the mystery is revealed in how the search for the throne brought together representatives of various professions: historians, archaeologists, physicists, bankers, and restorers. This centuries-old detective story has created a unique international community of researchers united by a common goal. The philosophical significance of the ninth throne lies in the fact that it embodies the idea of an unattainable ideal. The empty throne reminds us that perfection is unattainable for mortals, but the pursuit of it should guide human actions. This concept remains relevant in the modern world, where political leaders often forget about the moral responsibility of power. The cultural heritage associated with the ninth throne includes not only the artifact itself, but also a huge body of texts, images, legends, and traditions created around it. This tradition continues to evolve, inspiring writers, artists, and filmmakers to create new works. The educational significance of the mystery of the throne is invaluable for understanding European history. The history of the order and the search for its relics allow us to study medieval culture, the political processes of the early modern period, the development of historical science, and modern research methods in an engaging and accessible way. The geopolitical aspect of the issue is related to the fact that the Order of the Golden Fleece still exists in two branches: Spanish and Austrian. The question of the ownership of the ninth throne remains a subject of diplomatic debate and could become an important element of cultural diplomacy between European countries. Ultimately, the mystery of the ninth throne of the Order of the Golden Fleece is a unique phenomenon in world history, an enigma that has united the past and the present, reality and legend, science and mysticism for centuries. Regardless of whether the throne itself is ever found, its story has already become an integral part of European cultural heritage and continues to inspire new generations of researchers to search for the truth in the labyrinths of history.